All right, another one from Rachel. It's a two-parter. If Abba is watching how we handle the things in our lives, decisions we make, and the relationships we have, how do we determine if we are doing right things when things are not mentioned in Torah? In sin, breach of relationship, you mentioned that sin isn't necessarily a sin against Abba, but against the expectations of the other. What if expectations were never shared and they aren't the same?
I mean, I think if you read your question, you can probably figure the answer out. Okay, so first of all, if you are breaching an expectation that you never knew was an expectation, then that wasn't an actual covenant properly set. Which is why I tell people when they're vetting each other for marriage, I want them to have an expectations discussion where they actually show each other's, or at least share with each other what they expect from the wife role and what they expect from the husband role, so that the other person can know what they're offering in that role and what they expect from the other role, okay? So if you're breaching an expectation that you were not aware of, that's a fault in the person not making you aware of it, to whatever degree. Now, once you're aware of it, you then decide whether or not you want to comply with the expectation or not. And that's where we have a lot of people who have been married for 10 plus years deciding that, you know what, I'm tired of complying with this expectation I never agreed to in the first place, didn't know was there, and apparently it keeps getting me in trouble because the expectation is there. They have this expectation and I don't. And that can really be a challenge after a number of years of that, which is where you have to sit down and talk about it to see if there's an adjustment that can be made in the expectations. Otherwise, everybody's just frustrated. And then if you do meet the expectation under duress, because you really don't want to, then that's where we have a problem, okay? Now remember also when we trust and obey him is because we also believe in our trusting that doing things his way will bring the best result. It's the right thing to do is what we know, okay? Now, if you're having a problem, say, with your spouse, and your spouse has this expectation about whatever that's not Torah related, and to you it's like, no, that's not the way I would want it or whatever, well, it's under duress if you are being forced to do it because it's not something you actually agreed to do. We agree to trust Abba no matter what he said. You didn't do that when you got married. Matter of fact, you probably didn't even talk about it at all. You're just busy, Google-eyeing each other's and just being, I just like them so much and they're just so sweet, they're this and that, and whatever. And you're just all this emotional driven flesh stuff that you're not actually thinking through, okay? And so you don't talk about expectations. Or you're not honest. I've had people say, we talked about expectations. Yeah, and did you just say things like to impress the other person or to say things that you thought they wanted to hear? Or were you honest about what you expect, two people go out on a date and either the guy, usually it's the guy that does this, he'll order something that she likes and maybe get the same thing to try to impress her or do whatever it is to impress her. Or the other one does the same thing to impress, but that's not the way they would normally do it. Then they get married and they start doing it the way they normally would do it. The person's like, who are you? Don't do things to impress. Be you. And make sure in that relationship, Abba says right up front, this is me. I know what you need and what's best for you. If you would trust that, I'll take you as my people. That's our relationship. That's what I want. And you get all these blessings if you do. And by the way, the cursings are not necessarily caused by him. Not initially. You caused it on yourself. He says later on, I will actively do these things to you. But in the beginning, you're going to have most of these things happen because the natural consequences of your choices are going to bring these things on. Hopefully you guys caught that. It wasn't initially that he said, and I will curse you 7 times more, where he said, I will actively do it myself. Later he says, I myself will do these things to you. Which to me means some of the stuff in the beginning is just a natural consequence of your disobedience. Your bad choices bring bad consequences, okay? And so hopefully that makes some sense. So when I say that sin is breach of relationship, okay, it's got to be based on an agreed to expectation, though. It can't be a breach of relationship that I didn't know was a breach. If I breached something with you in a relationship and I didn't know that that would be a breach, it's not the same thing as that we already agreed to something and I knew something would be a breach and I did it anyway. Okay? Very different. Okay? So when it says, what if expectations were never shared? Well, then you're in a problem. If you didn't share the expectations, you probably have things that don't match up. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do it now after the fact and then figure out a way to make it work. It also means that you might come to realize that's why this doesn't work, is because we just don't have expectations that match and we're not willing to make them match. People end up divorced. It's what happens, okay? All right, and usually because one or both are doing things under duress. They're doing things because they feel forced and have to that they didn't really agree to. See, Abba's making it really clear up front. I need you to agree. If we want this relationship, you have to agree to my terms. What are my terms? You're going to do whatever I say. Okay? Now, he started off by saying, because you know who I am. I'm the one that brought you out of Egypt. I'm the one that brought you out on eagle's wings. I'm the one that did all these things. You want a relationship with me? My expectation is you're going to trust me and do what I say.